Welcome to the Non-Prophets. We scour the internet for proof of deities and the supernatural. Despite not finding information to convince us of the existence of any god, we're here to tell you what we have found. So buckle up, because the show is starting right now. Welcome, my wonderful new and returning journeyers to another episode of the Non-Prophets, the show where we discuss news and topics of the day with a skeptical magnifying glass and a good old slug of humanist perspective, and the good old boot of questioning thrown in there for good measure. I am, of course, one of the many heathens, unbelievers, apostates, and general blasphemers who put this show together. I am, of course, the ego that is Phoebe J. Rose, and no Scotsman has yet managed to dethrone me before my coronation in this seat forever next week. This, though, is season 22, episode 17 of the Non-Prophets, and it is recorded on Wednesday, the 26th of April, 2023, and I have a couple of strange humans that are next to me, so why don't you go and tell the world who you are? Cynthia. Scott.
Ooh, off to a smashing start.
This show is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 non-profit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And today we're going to be talking about some of the weird and wonderful things happening in the lower 48 and from somewhere in Italy. And there's place called Quebec thrown in there as well. So Missouri doesn't like people that are like me, so that's trans people are, a no-no. Oklahoma doesn't like people like Cynthia, so that will be black people or African Americans, depending on whichever part of the world you're from, as the correct nomenclature. And then we have scientists debunking the Shroud of Turin, and then we have Quebec being very French. So without further ado, let's talk about people like me, shall we? Trans people in this world, shall we? Oh, good grief. Where do I begin with this one? So, Missouri has decided that it's a great idea that people like me, consenting adults, should not be able to access medical care. Straight up. So, we have been dealing in the articles this week, which are a series of articles by Studio Republic and the AP News, that the Governor General, Andrew Bailey, not the Bank of England Governor, the Attorney General of Missouri, has said that you need to have 3 years worth of therapy. You may not be autistic, you may not have other medical conditions, and you as an adult may not choose your own medical care. Can someone please explain to me why my existence is such a hateful thing to this man? Before I go off on one, let's hear what the other two people have to say. Cynthia.
Yeah, so here's yet another example of the constitutional conservation writing bills according to their own beliefs instead of medical science. They use the same modus operandi, saying, according to the companion article, Republicans have said they need to pass such legislation as a way to protect children, which is so interesting to me because depending on what subject matter we're talking about would be what they're saying that they're protecting children about. Not even actually paying attention to the American Medical Association or other medical boards that actually have guidelines when it comes to transferring care to children, let alone adults. We're just going to go ahead and legislate because God said so. Actually, the Missouri Attorney General Bailey said that these are intended to protect all patients, to make sure that all patients have access to mental health services and that all patients understand the experimental nature of the drugs. I just like to point out, puberty blockers are not experimental. I'll repeat one more time for the people in the back. Puberty blockers are not experimental drugs. Puberty blockers actually have been approved and used for the past 30 1 to 30, 1 to 10, 20, 30 years. People, if you did not know that, well, let me go ahead and tell you. 1, 2, tree, as my grandmother would say, rest in peace, grandma. Yes, 30 years. They also actually treat other things, not just actually keeping from the body from actually developing, certain sexual organs as they actually traverse, but they treat endometriosis. They treat testicular cancer. They even treat breast cancer. So you're going to tell me we're going to go ahead and just completely ignore everything that the good things that puberty blockers do, just because, as the English would say, a GP, or as we say here in America, a PCP would actually
You and your bloody physicians.
I know. But we would actually prescribe these things to and they're not like little children. Like, you have to be of the age, you can be of the age of consent or being able to actually have conversations by yourself when you are 12 years old in the United States. And also, there, like I said, there's a whole board of general practices that doctors actually follow from the board associations. We got plenty of them right here in America that will tell you exactly how to do gender affirming care. But what do we care about here in America when it comes to medical science? Screw that shit. Scott.
Yeah, Scott, what you gonna say? What you gotta say on that?
Well, first of all, when I read this story, it's just very frustrating, right? We're talking about treating human beings. I know this is kind of outside the box here thinking, but treating human beings as if they were human beings, for one thing. And so clearly that's an issue for some people. But even if you set aside all that information that Cynthia just dumped on us, what really motivates me to dig into this is I want to know what's the purpose, what's the point, what's the motivation behind this bill. Is it just an attitude towards gender identity that's not the way things that they think they're supposed to be? So I did a little digging, and I found some Pew Research results, and it addressed, and this is the quote, this is their wording, by the way. They measured the percentage of U.S. adults who say that whether a person is a man or a woman is determined by sex at birth. And by sex at birth, I assume they mean they check out the genitals and they make their proclamation what this person is going to be for their life. And so here's some information for you. This is the percentage of U.S. adults who say that whether a person is a man or a woman, their wording again, is determined by sex at birth. For all U.S. adults in 2022, it was 60%, which is shockingly high. I would have thought it was much lower, but 60% of U.S. adults in 2022 think that you're locked in. Day one, you're locked in. 38% answered the former. However, when we start breaking it down by some demographics, we get some interesting patterns showing up here. And I'm sure this will shock nobody that's listening to this show. When we're talking about Protestants, the number goes up from 60% to 75%. They think your gender is locked in on day one, right? And even when we whittle it down even further to white evangelical U.S. adults, 87% versus 13% that think that it's not locked in on day one. Yeah.
Oh, more than 1 in 10 white evangelicals think that it's not locked in. That's amazing.
Well,
there's a number to work with there.
So there's some sunshine to be had here, apparently. So, but I did want, before we move on here, I want to throw out atheists, 24%, which is higher than I would have expected. 76% of atheists, of U.S. atheists in 2022, think that gender is not locked in on day one. So for most groups, the number that say gender is determined by sex at birth, the numbers have actually increased, which was surprising to me, between 2017 and 2022. Those numbers went up a little bit during those years. Some of them had a little dip in the middle, but it seems like lately things have been increasing. So what we see here, though, is that there's clearly a connection between an American's religiosity and their viewpoint on this particular topic. What do y'all think?
Well, I think it's Missouri being Missouri, but I also think that skepticism and rationality of questioning play a large part in that, because you don't really associate questioning and trying to drill down into, meanings of things with, Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, or, Pentecostal Christianity or fundamentalist Islam. You don't really tend to think of those things as going hand in hand. Whereas with atheism, you tend to have either come from a place where you had no religion imposed on you at all, so it's never been a part of your life, or you have decided that, you have moved away from it, so you've done some form of questioning in and of yourself. But that's where I see this coming from. But getting back to Missouri itself, we have seen Missouri behave like this before over abortion. Missouri, with its admitting privileges laws, with its clinics away from schools laws.
It's Missouri. Missouri.
M.O.
You got to talk it right.
Right. Well, you ain't talking it right. America, Phoebe.
Yeah, you wait till next week when, I get coronated. You'll be in trouble. The lot of you'll all be in trouble.
I believe it.
But anyway, the state that we are referring to with the 2-letter code MO seems to have an MO of, salami slicing one issue at a time. And this MO is now trans people. The previous MO was people seeking abortions or people providing abortions, because Missouri was one of the first states to try to go dark on abortions before the most recent ruling effectively outlawing abortion in a large number of states. So this is not a new thing. So Missouri seems to have given up on its, push against abortion because it thinks it's won. So now it's moving on to trans people. And it's moving in the same direction. So it's going after healthcare. It's going after doctors. It's going after individuals themselves. It's taking away individual rights. And this is what we need to be most concerned about, because they're going to go on this salami slice, salami slice, salami slice, salami slice. And which is the next group they go after? Because abortion rights, yes, that's a fairly obvious one that's been around since, people decided that, interfering in the person's right to choose their own bodily autonomy came there. And then more bodily autonomy gets attacked. So which bodily autonomy do we attack next, Cynthia?
Well, what you're describing basically is just like the MO, no pun intended, with Missouri of Operation Blitz that has been implored in Christian nationalism, which we talk about on the nonprofits ad nauseum. They are, and I mean mostly Christian nationalists, or as Cindy Plaza calls them, Christo-fascist. I kind of like that term, actually. I want to start using it a little bit more. But basically, this is an attack on any persons that do not fit what Christian nationalists think that, is the good Christian American way. So that is trans people. That is LGBTQ people. That's women. That's minority groups. I mean, hell, we still are fighting for I don't know how long to get proper history taught in schools, because we have dipshits like DeSantis, sorry guys, who want to ban AP African American history, which is nothing but history in the United States. So
it says it right there in the title.
Yeah. What the hell? So that's the thing is, this is definitely the whole, Operation Blitz thing that's going on, especially when it comes to trans affirming care. We even talk about the bathroom issue. We talk about the playing sports issue. And the going forward, like bullet point after bullet point after bullet point, to see like, okay, what terrible thing that I can do this week to make sure that my political agenda that matches my worldview actually passes. And this is exactly what we're seeing. Missouri's elected officials are just following suit. And I do apologize everybody for calling the governor of Florida a dipshit. I should say that he has dipshit like qualities. Oh.
Scott, I've got something that I'm going to ask you, Scott.
Sure.
Devil's advocate with me.
Okay.
Defend this action by the Attorney General of Missouri to me, a trans person. Defend it.
What about the children, right? What about the children? They're doing irreversible, regrettable damage to their bodies, right? Isn't that the main thing? Isn't that the, it's all about the kids.
Babies, just the babies. You got to protect the babies.
So where's the evidence base for all these children that are being pushed through irreversible changes? Where are these children?
I got the evidence. You got the evidence? I got the evidence.
I have some evidence. Thank you, Phoebe, for asking. It's almost as if you knew I had some evidence waiting to pop out here. I did a little digging, okay, and so the motivation is how common is transgender treatment regrettable or detransitioning or dangerous or harmful, right? And so I found this on AP News. This was about how common is transgender treatment regrettable and detransitioning. Dutch research from several years ago found no evidence of regret in transgender adults who had comprehensive psychological evaluations in childhood before undergoing puberty blockers and hormone treatment. Some studies suggest that rates of regret have declined over the years as patient selection and treatment methods have improved. And here's the kicker. In a review of 27 studies involving almost 8,000 teens, children, and adults, who had transgender surgeries, mostly in Europe, the US, and Canada, 1% on average expressed any form of regret. And for many of them, it was a temporary regret, but a small number of them went on to have detransitioning or reversal surgeries. And so we're talking about a fraction of individuals who undergo these kind of medical changes, having regret and wanting to switch back.
We're within the margin of error of having no statistical regret at all.
Well within the margin of error, I would have to say.
Well within the margin of error. So
yes.
Here's the thing that people don't like to hear. Cancer is treated aggressively. Cancer has a 20 to 30% regret rate. Knee surgery has up to 50% regret rates in England. 50% of people that get some form of corrective knee surgery will regret it because it didn't improve their life.
That's more than 1%.
So here's the thing. Missouri, please, everybody who wants knee surgery needs to have 50 times more psychological treatments with their counselor. They need to have 50 times more screening for mental health conditions, 50 times more autism screenings, and then I will accept that you are ready for the medicine. But until that time, I would like Scott to hold up bigotry duck. Because that is what you are doing. So,
Quack indeed.
Does anybody want to try to defend this a little bit more to me, Cynthia?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
sure. See, the evidence is in Jesus. You understand, Phoebe. See, the thing about it is that you're not reading your Bible right, okay? Because, and obviously you are not also watching Mr. Rogers right, because when he wrote, "What do you do with the mad that you feel?" the last line was where a boy can be, girl can grow up to be a woman and a boy can be a man. So obviously that Mr. Rogers and the Bible are right and you are wrong. Take that, atheist.
Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
I feel like I'm walking into an episode of Ozarks here.
Yeah, that's the argument from Mr. Rogers, if you all didn't.
Have I walked into an episode of Ozarks here or something?
Maybe.
It's like a weird episode of Ozarks.
The Ozarks are in Missouri. Just saying.
This is why I say that. that geographic reference was not lost on. Have I walked into an episode of Ozarks here? I mean, but
Phoebe, you're just operating on another level. You're operating on another level. We just can't.
This is
work-
because the Attorney General of Missouri is somewhere here, and then he came up against me, and then realized that it wasn't just me. It wasn't really a fair fight, because whenever you face me, it's me and my ego. But
Oof.
before I finish with my final rant, do either of you two have anything that you would like to say to the wonderful humans that have written this, and to the wonderful people who are pushing this?
I certainly do. I certainly do.
People like myself who are trans in this world.
So the whole idea is that it's about protecting, right? There's outrage and resistance and efforts being made to stop these horrible permanent changes being made to people's own bodies. And so naturally, there must be other things that do this similar kind of changes to an individual, that there should be an equal amount of offense, right? Like, for example, gastric bypass or gastric band surgery, right? That's when you they reduce the size of your stomach by wrapping this band around it, and it's going to prevent you from eating too much. Here's the lowdown on gastric band surgery. Gastric bands are not yet approved by the FDA for use on anyone under the age of 18 or younger. Okay, so that's a relief, although the surgery is still done, commonly done, in fact. But there's not enough research yet to know on how it may help or harm teens, although some studies suggest that weight loss surgery can improve the health of obese teens. They're making what if they regret? What if they would rather not have that gastric band surgery? What if they wish that they had never done that? Okay, they're doing permanent changes to their body. Tubal ligation, okay? Tubes tied, getting your tubes tied. There's no legal age requirement for getting your tubes tied in the United States. That will sterilize the individual who has it done. Isn't that part of what's being worried about here? Isn't that part of the problem? No offense, no outrage, no challenges. Missouri does not have any bills in the works for outlawing tubal ligation, even though it does exactly or very similar type of permanent changes to an individual. Well, I don't know. I don't get what the pushback is. We see that there's a religious connection, and that the arguments that they're putting forth are empty, are vacuous. And so I don't know. I would be curious. I'm legitimately curious. What is the real problem?
Well, the NACL has not written a bill yet, Scott, against tubalization or gastric bypass surgery. For a person who actually had gastric bypass surgery, I didn't have the band, I had another surgery. It, I don't know, saved my life. So I definitely need the NACL to lead that.
Are you sure you didn't regret it later on? I mean, you didn't regret? No, okay.
No, I don't regret that. I don't regret that I did it.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I encourage other people who happen to be older, who may have like some issues, especially when it comes to exercising and things of that nature. If you need a tool to help you lose weight, that's something to look into. Not telling you to do it, but it's definitely something to look into. But I didn't regret
this episode does not constitute medical advice. If you have medical questions, please consult your own individual.
Exactly. You're right. Exactly. Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, please look into that with your own medical provider, not necessarily Cynthia McDonald. So. But one of the things that I did want to point out before Phoebe does her last rant is that this particular bill itself may not necessarily go through, because we have a companion bill per se in the Senate that is less shitty. However, one of the things that it does say in both bills is that the Missouri House bills ban inmates and prisoners from accessing gender affirming care and gender affirming surgeries specifically, and this is really bad. It would end coverage of any gender affirming treatments for Missouri patients on Medicaid, the federal health insurance program, and which is for a person who actually works with people who are on Medicaid. Like, a lot of times that's the only way that they're able to actually get any type of care, medical care, period. And it's because they don't have, they may not necessarily have a job where it would, or even they may not necessarily have enough income in order for them to be able to get insurance from the marketplace. So to know that in Missouri, they're actually talking about taking this care away from people who are at or below the federal poverty line is actually egregious. And, and so again, I just want to just necessarily say that this is just another example of Christo-fascist Operation Blitz, NACL, National Association of Christian Legislators, bullshit that is going to definitely cause issues. Take it away, Phoebe.
So, I, a white British person, am a lesser person in the state of Missouri, according to the Attorney General of Missouri, because my gendered identity does not match up with the narrow-minded, self-absorbed, narcissistic, egomaniacal crap that is coming out of this man's mouth. We, as a society, must do better. Why is it that the poorest in society are the ones that are attacked the most? Those on Medicaid are the poorest in society, and why should they not get the medical treatment that somebody like myself, who earns a decent amount of money and is not on Medicaid, can access? Why is that a barrier? And why am I, just for existing, somebody that has now been decided that I could have medical treatment taken away from me that will lead to my death? Why are you killing me, Missouri? And why are you killing other trans people, trans children? You want to protect children? Ditch these attacks on trans people, and you will save the lives of children. At the moment, you are killing trans children. And until you wake up and realize that, you will forever be remembered in the same breath as Jim Crow. And on that note, we're going to talk about Jim Crow after I thank our veteran viewers for getting us well over the 12,000 subscriber mark. But if you're watching this and you like what we have to say about these parts, and you haven't subscribed, what the bloody hell's wrong with you? There's a button down there. Press subscribe. Then press the bell, and it will go ding, 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 and then you'll never miss anything like this in the future. But if you're watching this and you're wondering, well, when can I catch this when it premieres? Well, that's on a Sunday, 3 p.m. Central Time. Or if you're in my part of the world, just add on 6 hours, unless the time zone change, then it's 5 hours, or in some cases 7 hours. But we'll leave that for another day because I hate time zones.
Oh my God!
But whilst you're at it, share this with everybody if you want to save America. You want to save the world. You want to save the galaxy and the Milky Way. Share this episode specifically, and then share other episodes.
No pressure. No pressure.
But it's not just this show that we do around these parts. We've got a whole range of other shows. And do you know where you can catch those shows? On the Atheist Experience Network, where you can find Talk Heathen, the Atheist Experience, and you can even delve into the back catalogue and see more of me on secular sexuality. Or you can, listen to The Preaching Humanist. Get there. Once the Atheist Experience is finished on Sunday, go over there and then just watch the back catalogue. Just do that. And then never miss a single episode moving forwards. You see? We've got you covered until the end of time. And with that, we're going to be discussing Jim Crow and Friends.
Yes, let's talk a little bit about Jim Crow and Friends. So we are discussing a couple of articles specifically from NBC News and also AP. One actually entitled Oklahoma Sheriff, 2 staffers recorded discussing lynching Black people are suspended from Sheriff's Association. Also, we have the Oklahoma County Commissioner resigns after being recorded talking about lynching Black people. And then there's calls growing for local Oklahoma officials resigning after racist leaked audio for talking about, can anybody guess it? Anybody?
Making money.
Lynching Black people. That's what we're talking about, people. So in this week's news of swooning over the good old days of Jim Crow news, I took that straight from Blatant Atheist because that's how he kind of like opens his talks when he's talking about an article. Shout out to you, BB. The Oklahoma Sheriff's Association suspended the McCurtain County Sheriff and 2 other staffers Tuesday after they were secretly recorded talking about killing reporters and lynching Black people after a public meeting. The threatening comments by Jennings, that's the Oklahoma sheriff, and also officials with McCurtain County Sheriff's Office were obtained following a March 6 meeting and reported by the McCurtain Gazette News earlier this week in the weekend edition. Sheriff Kevin Clardy's sheriff investigator, sorry about that, guys, Elisa Manning and jail administrator Larry Hendricks were caught on a recording that was left there by Bruce Willingham, which was a longtime publisher of the Gazette News. And Jennings tells Clardy and Manning, quote, "I know where 2 deep holes are dug if you ever need them." The sheriff responds, "I got an excavator." Jennings also says he knows 2 or 3 hitmen in Louisiana, adding, "They're very quiet guys." Now, hiring a hitman to get rid of your journalist was not enough. Then they added lynching Black people for their tete-a-tete because things, insert side eye here, quote lifted from the video from the sheriff would be take a damned Black guy. Let's take a damn Black guy, guys. Whoop their ass and throw them in a cell, the newspaper reported. Yeah, Clardy replied, according to the newspaper, "It's not like that no mo." "I know," Jenny said. "Take them down to Mud Creek and hang them with a damn rope. You can't do that anymore. They got more rights than we got." And I'm going to go ahead and stop there and let Scott say your piece on that.
I want to be at Cynthia's house for story time. I want to be there for story time at night. Okay. Well, sadly though, we hear stories like this fairly often. We hear these stories. It seems like every time we turn around, there's another story about somebody in a position of power and or trust taking advantage and showing their their true colors. All right. Showing their true colors, showing, saying the quiet part out loud. When I read that, typically it's going to be attached to related stories about implicit bias or unconscious bias. They talk about increasing transparency, right? Involving mandatory reporting, things like public review boards, body cameras, stuff like that. They talk about education, anti-bias training, empathy training, stuff like that, rules of engagement even. But the problem is here, we're not talking about implicit bias. Are we, Bigotry Duck? No, this is raw, outright racism in its purest form. This is not the part that we think about, how are we going to address this? What can we do to reduce this? This is the part where we vomit and then immediately try to squash it. I mean, come on, what century are we in here where this just open racism? I mean, it's got to be more common than I see. It's got to be more common than I see. I would imagine that it's out there. It's just so frustrating. I mean, it's and what's the downside for the people doing this? They get a paid vacation. They get maybe some bad press. A bunch of people that they don't like are shaking their fists at them. Meanwhile, people that they do like are patting them on the back and giving them attaboys and saying, "Yeah, boy, I wish we could do things that way." I mean, I'm using a little bit of hyperbole here, but I think it illustrates the point, right? And so how are we going to address this? What can we do? Phoebe, I'm hesitant to pass this off to you here, but let's give it a shot. What do you think on this, Phoebe?
That racism dies hard south of the Mason-Dixon line, you see. You see, racism is one of these things that's been around in Oklahoma and other states south of the Mason-Dixon line for quite a while. Because before, African Americans were the target, it was Native Americans because they had large reservations out there, and now they don't. Because racism, my friends, is a wonderful thing in this part of the world. But what we are seeing here, though, is that you can have one jumped up, anonymous, self-absorbed, narcissistic prick make a complaint about some clinic that's offering life-saving treatment to people, and it gets that clinic shut down. How dare it be? Protect the children. No. Do that to the police department, and you've got the Fraternal Order of Police going, we can't stand for these kinds of people making these kinds of baseless accusations. That person that made the accusation needs to be sacked. And what happens? Shit to bugger all happens.
Shit to bugger all. I agree.
Absolutely
shit to bugger all.
Shit to
That's my
bugger
new
all
phrase.
happens.
Yep.
To bugger
To
all. That
these
needs to be a
people.
t-shirt. Shit to bugger all.
So these people in police departments, in prison administration, in county government, in state government, that have all these complaints made against them. I mean, we go to Australia and there's a premier in Australia who is renowned for winning elections whilst being investigated for corruption. But that's beside the point. What we have here is we have entrenchment of my mates can get away with what my mates can get away with, whereas my mates' enemies can get away with nothing. And we call that corruption. And Cynthia, you appear to be corrupted by this.
Well, when you put your face on the camera like that, Phoebe, what can you do? But speaking of caught in corruption, I like to point out specifically with these three folks, Sheriff Cardi and Clan, and I use that purposely. They were kind of pushed to resign by the governor and also some state representatives in Oklahoma. But the thing about it is that none of this would have happened if they weren't caught. Like, they would still be in their particular offices. They'll still be in their positions, and they were still possibly doing shitty things to Black residents, like nostalgia over hanging them up, or maybe even try that shit if they were not caught. And that's the egregious thing part about it. Like, every time that I really think about when I hear, oh, racism does not exist, or it's outlawed, or it's
right, we're post-racist.
Yeah, we're in a post-racist
I just need to jump in here before we carry on.
Yeah.
In the United Kingdom, a member of Parliament who I shall not name has been suspended from their party for saying, and I quote, "Racism is about colour. Jews cannot experience racism." So it's not just America that's experiencing this kind of nonsense.
Well, I mean, I like the way that I forgot specifically the gentleman who said it. He said that, racism is beyond just being, I don't like you because your color is different, or your religion is different, or your ethnicity is different, etc., etc. Racism is prejudice plus power. See, I can be bigoted, which all of us have our own biases. Everybody does. And a lot of times that is driven by the environment that we have grown up in and some of our own worldviews that we have picked up along the way. But the difference of everything is to know that you have your implicit biases and check them at the door when they show up. But see, here's the thing with these people right here. That did not happen. And the thing about it is their biases, their prejudice was plus power because they were in law enforcement. This is the freaking sheriff in freaking Oklahoma. And they have carte blanche to be able to invoke any type of law and order that they want to, which we all know is a freaking dog whistle to the right when it comes to how we want to treat specifically Black folk. Because like we were the original people that dog whistles were invented for. Everybody else is kind of like was adjacent, and they kind of got like our win. Sorry, every other marginalized group in the United States and the world. Our bad. But the thing about it is that it really annoys me, because like we are in freaking 2023. I'm saying freaking a lot because I'm trying to not do the F-bomb that much. We are in 2023. I like to point out to Phoebe and Scott, I don't know if you all know, but there have been different instances in the United States history where they were trying to get lynching made illegal.
Federal hate crimes legislation to try to include lynching.
Right.
Yes,
specifically.
Specifically lynching. The first attempt was back in between 1920 and 21. The first anti-lynching bill to pass in the United States happened in 2021.
Wait, so there was resistance to that?
Yes.
Yeah, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act.
Exactly.
Section 249 of Title 18 of the United States Code, which specifically makes lynching a hate crime.
Give Phoebe a gold star. Girlfriend got Google on lock. So that's
I'm about to be coronated as the queen round these parts next week. So you've got to, respect.
You know what? All day, every day. But I'm American. I can't respect royalty. Anywho, we had a whole.
Hey, look, you get two here.
Sorry,
look,
darling.
Phoebe, and you get a second. So you've got the ego, which is being coronated, and you've got Phoebe, who is the consort. But we're digressing.
Well, we are so digressing, because here's the thing, guys, and this is why I get really, really upset. This is what I have to say about this story and the climate of America specifically. When I had conversations with conservative white people and Black people that say that white supremacy is a fantasy and racism does not exist, let the record show that these people were elected and appointed officials talking like this in law enforcement. I really need to emphasize that.
But not just law enforcement.
No.
We are talking about the entire criminal justice apparatus here, because we're dealing here with prison administration. So we're not just dealing with someone going out and getting arrested. We're dealing with the punishment aspect of the criminal justice system as well here.
Exactly. And this is why I'm emphasizing law enforcement. That includes policing. That includes the prison industrial complex. That includes everything about any type of security that comes to what has been passed down from legislatures that these people are supposed to enforce. And those positions are of power. And also, they weren't removed from office, like I said before. They were not pressured. They were just pressured to resign. And finally, if they were not caught to say these vile things, they would still have a job. So if you want to specifically say to me, racism and white supremacy does not exist, I really need for you to have several seats and walk the fuck away. Scott?
Oof, that's tough. That's tough to follow. Okay, well, I mean, there's no doubt that the United States has a long, rich history of racism. There's no doubt about that. It's a societal problem, and part of the problem is that, when we see these stories, we get upset and we rant and rave about it, but I think we need to come to a collective decision to not accept it. And I think we've made good progress, and I think we're mostly there. But clearly, there's little pockets of resistance to this kind of thinking. But I think if we want to, I'm going to go back to to the ancient Greeks here, Socrates said that be what you wish to seem. And I love that phrase, and it's guided many decisions in my life. Be what you wish to seem. If we want the world to see America as a beacon of hope for the world to see, then we need to be a beacon of hope, and we need to make systemic changes. And it's not going to come from just talking about it. We have to decide as a group. We have to decide as a society that this is just not acceptable, and that we're not going to put up with it. And I think we're making progress, but we clearly have a long way to go.
I just like to also point out that Socrates is my favorite philosopher. Phoebe?
Don't be so Socratic with me. Stop being Socratic.
So you should say, are you really being Socratic with me?
Sure. Are you really?
Really? But anyway, I don't think we're being Socratic here. I think we're, seeing the wood for the trees here. And I also think that, our indicators of beaconicity and our blue sky thinking are saying that these individuals are from a different century or even a different millennium. So they seem to have been plucked out of the pages of some Charles Dickens novel. This is the third decade of the third millennium since we started counting these things. And I just want to say, do better. Just do better. Stop. Think about it. If somebody said this about you, and you were to say, white person XYZ, white person XYZ, you'd have a fucking... you'd be setting your hair on fire. You'd be challenging your bollocks to a barn dance, for crying out loud. And I mean...
I'm learning so much today. I'm learning so much.
Consider me an outsider looking at this. But America, you've got an awful long way to go. Britain has its problems, and we do racism slightly differently to you because we do it about people who look the same as each other, and that's called class. You don't have that quite as much. But we still have racism. But we don't quite have it on the scale you do. I mean, really? In this day and age, people at work casually talking about lynching people because they're not the same as you? Turning around and saying you want to destroy people protesting you? Cynthia?
Well, I just want to say that one of the things that we have to understand, specifically about racism, is that racism was invented here. It was invented in the United States. We actually got our sentiments for the foundation of racism from Europe. Thank you, Europeans. However, when it actually came to practice, actually separating people and creating laws and codifying them into institutions and systems, that would start right here in the good old United States of America. Make America great again. So ding, exactly. So so this is something that we have to understand. And the thing about it is that I don't really think that this is something that is is like a one set thing that happens. I really don't believe that. I believe that this is a general sentiment, especially from people that happen to be in legislation and law enforcement. I really do. And specifically in law enforcement, because if you know your history, which again, if that dipshit would let us teach it properly, police came out of slave patrols. I didn't say their name, Phoebe. I didn't say the name. Police came out of slave patrols. So it's not lost upon me that we would have people who are still in law enforcement that talk like this, not speak, but talk like this. So, yeah, do better, America. But the thing about it is that not only do better, But you need to hear people like me who are shouting at you, who vote, and who are really interested in how laws are ran in this country and make that change. Shout out to the Thriller. All right.
But yes, on the subject of being better, if you can be better and you like what we're doing and you can arrange yourself to be in the Austin, Texas area on Sunday, 28th of May 2023, you can consider joining us at the Atheist Community of Austin Free Thought Library for our live broadcasts of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. Doors open at noon, and parking is, well, there's a car park there to start with, so when that's filled up, park legally. We are not responsible for traffic fines or towing aways or Denver boots or any of that stuff on your motor vehicles of any description. And we continue to do this on the last Sunday of every month to broadcast from the library, so keep watching our website, which is atheist-community.org for more information, and we hope to be expanding our in-studio offerings in the near future. But if you have a craving and you just can't slake that hunger for ACA content, you can now check out our brand new 24/7 Atheist Experience TV live stream. You can tune in any time of the day, any day of the week, for a constant stream of live shows, clips, specials. And there are 26 seasons of the Atheist Experience. There are some missing episodes. If you know where those missing episodes are, of like season 1, season 2, etc., please let us know, and we'll add them to the live stream. So visit tiny.cc/AXPTV to join the fun. But now, we're going to be moving on to something which is a little more shrouded. And Scott, shroud us away.
Shroud. I will remove the shroud from the Shroud of Turin. So this was an article called "What Scientists Found When They Studied the Shroud of Turin." And this was written by James Felton for www.iflscience. I think we know what the IFL stands for, .com. And it was published on April 18th of this year. So yeah, the Shroud of Turin. Okay, so we keep hearing stories about the Shroud of Turin. Every once in a while, they pop up. They're kind of like those stories about Noah's Ark. It seems like every other year they're like, oh, hey, they found Noah's Ark this time for realsies, wink. And so similar kind of thing here. Shroud of Turin. If you're not familiar with the Shroud of Turin, it supposedly was the burial cloth that was used to wrap the body of Jesus after he was taken down from the cross. And so exactly. So that's the one, that's the guy. So for believers, it's a sacred, holy relic, right? It represents this magical moment in history, or in at least their view of history. Scientists, on the other hand, well, it's a thing, right? And so it was kind of a short article, but it summarized much of the scientific investigation that's taken place here, and they really had three main things that they covered in the article. One, the shroud's first recorded appearance was in 1354, and around that time, the Bishop of Troyes, which I actually looked up, that's how you pronounce it, the Bishop of Troyes, labeled it a cunningly painted hoax. Second, in the 80s, they did some radiocarbon dating, right? They took some samples from three separate organizations. There were three separate groups of scientists independently took samples from the, well, they were allowed to take samples from the shroud, and they did some radiometric dating, and they showed with a 95% confidence interval that the shroud dated to around 1260 to 1390 CE. And so that kind of matches with the other piece of information. More recently, they did some research in the University of Pavia, Italy. They used modern forensic techniques to study the blood patterns to see if it could, in fact, be somebody wrapped around somebody who had gone through scourging and crucifixion. And their results showed that the patterns were not likely caused by any kind of crucifixion, either a Y-shaped or a T-shaped or any kind of shape. No crucifixion. Anybody want to share their opinion on that?
Shock. Well, I'm amazed, truly amazed that, you know, hoaxes have been going on forever. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I thought better of our ancestors, and, you know, I thought better of them. I thought that, you know, it's only us that did it. Like, I thought it was only, you know, modern humans that, you know, said spaghetti farms were a thing in Italy and other such things.
Hold on. They're not? Is that what you're saying?
There's no pasta farms in Italy? Yeah. Are you telling me this right now?
Yeah, all I have to tell you is that a British television show lied to you when it claimed to go to Switzerland and the pasta farms of Switzerland. But anyway, so scientists have come along and done some, you know, sciencing and gone, this isn't science. This is, well, bullshit. And we've been looking at this as if it's like something that we should, you know, stop doing. But no. This is a wonderful piece of sociological history now. How people can believe certain things. I mean, a man tried to break in and steal the Magna Carta a few years ago. So what they now have is a plaque next to the Magna Carta that says, damage to this was done by blah, 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 when they tried to steal it. Well, that's what we should be doing here. We should be going, people used to believe blah, 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 and then at this time, this happened when in the 80s, people did radiocarbon dating and this and this and this and this. It's a historical artifact of humans being humans, and not much more, in my opinion. But it's lovely to see that humans have been humans for a very long time, and that skepticism is still there. People aren't just accepting things for what they are. People are actually going, hang on a minute, what are you playing at here? Hang on a minute. Cynthia, tell me what I'm hanging on about.
Well, yeah, no. You're hanging on something that was hanging in a church as a relic, and people were hanging on the belief that Jesus actually was electrified by heaven, and his imprint was left on linen from like what 1 year CE. That's what I'm getting at. But, you know, I know that Scott has pointed this out, and the article has pointed this out, how many times that this particular shroud was tested in some kind of way to actually, you know, for its particular authenticity. You know, I kind of wish Ontologilla was here so we could talk about this, because he has some very interesting takes on the Shrouded Turin.
Be careful about what you wish for. Be careful. That's a line. You've already said his name once. Don't say it too many times.
Right.
We're in trouble.
Right. I'm about to say, if I say it 2 more times, all of a sudden, Buddy Boy gonna show up. Anywho, yeah, but has a very interesting take specifically on the Shrouded Turin and why it is proof of the resurrection of Jesus. But I mean, like, as you mentioned, Scott, that the Bishop of Troyes, Henri Potier, condemned the shroud as a fake. And Potier. I took French diction.
Henri Potier, du maire en France.
Oh, parlez-vous français? Oui, whatever. Anyway, condemned. Merci beaucoup.
Je suis désolé, mon ami en français.
Cafe. Okay. Condemned the shroud as a fake, and a painter was identified during the 14th century. So they already knew back in the 1300s. Yeah, I'm bringing out my American AAVI vernacular, that this particular shroud was meh, you know, and then like hidden away for 34 years by the anti-Pope Clement, that said that it could be venerated as an icon, but it must be noted at every showing that this is not authentic. Yet people are still trying to actually imbue some divinity property in this particular shroud that has been shown over and over and now over again, that this is not authentic. I mean, I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch the video that is attached to this.
I did. It had a great tune, a snappy little tune that went
Yeah,
along
I
with
was
it.
like, hey, you know, I was doing my bopping like when I was listening to it. But I mean, they went through a lot of trouble actually photographing and positioning a body to see if this could even comport slightly to a person that was either T-shaped crucified or X-shaped, Y-shaped, sorry, crucified. So you got your T and you got your Y, and they went and they had dude up here like this, and then this, and then this, and then this.
Did they call Mr. T for this? Did they get Mr. T in for this?
No, because when nobody's saying I pity the fool. So they even had the IV of fake blood like running down from each portion of it to actually corroborate the position to see if this could even possibly comport to this person was crucified. And after they did all the I feel like I need to do the clock dance or something. That was like on PBS back in the day. But after they did all of that, they came and said, based on our conclusion from our study, I don't have like a good Italian accent, you know, unless I'm singing the opera.
Based on the conclusions from the study.
Okay, yeah, but that's the French one. I need to do like
Because
the
there
Italian one.
is some French in me, and we are talking about trois here, so I shall.
Well, no,
Trois
Trois didn't do the actual this last experiment. It was the university that was in Italy. So based on the conclusions that we got from the actual experiment that we did, it did not conclude that any person actually was being crucified. I do apologize for my really bad Italian accent.
I would say that we have been speaking in segment 1 and 2 about certain matters, and in segment 3 we do this. I would like to extend my apologies to anybody that has got suggested it's from an Italian or French heritage.
I'll even do it for you. You know, I just like to say that my Italian accent is not the views of the ACA. So, so we actually had like this is like concluding. So I just want to say to everybody, including Mr. Dongswell, I said your name twice, so I'm not going to say it a third time. Please stop using the Shroud of Turin as absolute evidence, empirical evidence of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. No. Scott.
Yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing about this. Well, it would be funny if it wasn't so tragic. That I mean, it like I said, these stories keep coming up over and over again, and people think, "Oh, hey, you know, I never thought of that. Boy, let's let's use that." One thing I like to do when I read an article like this is, and I know I'm a glutton for punishment here, but I like to scroll down. I like to scroll down and see the comments. I want to see the perspective of somebody who's not me. And so I did that here, and here's one of the comments I found. I will not be adding accent and attitude here, so bear with me. I noticed the supporters of possibility of Shroud being authentic appear to be at least be open-minded and reference back to the actual science. As noted below, examine factual assigned findings from STURP, STURP, all in caps. I think that means the Shroud of Turin Project. Alternatively, the naysayers seem to offer derogatory commentary based on nothing more than personal opinion. Okay, so this person, Orange Wheel is the person's name. They're saying that people, you know, the people that are investigating this, the people that are promoting this as an authentic relic are the ones who are looking at the science correctly and not injecting their own personal opinions into this. The naysayers, the critics, the skeptics are the ones who are letting their opinions rule the day. So I looked up STURP. I went to STURP. It was actually www.shroud.com. They listed 37 published papers, some of which were published in peer-reviewed journals, but not all of them. And here's an example of some of the results that were found in the actual research that they're actually using to support the authenticity of this shroud. Spectral comparisons are made between laboratory reflectance data and selected shroud features. Infrared thermographic imaging was accomplished with an enhanced contrast technique using external illumination. Here's the key. Due to the spectral similarities of most features observed, we show that the results are inconclusive. That was one of them. Here's another study that they're using to support the authenticity of this particular relic. The chemical differences between image and non-image areas of the cloth indicate that the image was produced by some dehydrative oxidative process. However, a detailed mechanism for the production of this image, accounting for all of its properties, remains undetermined. Their research says, we don't know. We don't know. And so even if we were to grant all of this supporting evidence, even if we were to say all of this research says exactly what Mr. Orange Wheel says it says, even if we grant that, at most what we have is an old cloth with bloodstains on it that was consistent with a body that was beaten. Therefore, God, suck on that one, atheists.
Well, let's wrap this up, this segment, and let's, move on before we, get wrapped up in this a little bit too much. But if you
you were afraid to respond to my lethal argumentation there.
What I would say is, if you are the orange wheel person, please, email nonprofits at atheist-community.org and, respond to us. And if you have any other responses from any other people out there, you can, message us at nonprofits at atheist-community.org. But before you do that, look below us on the screen down here. And you should see this thing that says join. Unless, of course, you've already joined. Then you won't see that. And you can, for as little as 99 cents a month, become a member of the Nonprofits channel. You can have access to wonderful emojis, and you won't get slowed down when we slow down the chat. So, we also have something else. We have merchandise. It's the last day of this month, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can get that wonderful t-shirt there, and you should buy it now. Buy it now. At tiny.cc/merchaca. T-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs. I want a teapot, damn it. They will do me a teapot. And all of the ACA shows have special limited edition items this month. And if you want April's and you're watching this live, you have until the end of this day to get April's specials. So if you want them, buy them now. Because if you wait till tomorrow, you won't be able to buy it now. You'll be in regret forever because you will have missed out. But you can then buy May's special. So, it's a step in the right direction now.
Yes, it is a step in the right direction. Step in the right direction. Yeah, step in the right direction. We're stepping in the right direction. Yeah. And I feel kind of bad because I didn't sing it in French. Anyway, this particular article comes from...
That was worth the price of admission right there.
Yeah. Okay, well, this actually comes from the Montreal CTV News, which is a Canadian press, actually entitled Quebec Issues Directives Banning Religious Practices in Public Schools, CVT News, Montreal, the Canadian press staff in the Canadian press. So, what is this all about, people? Well, there was some students in a public school who happened to be Muslim, for a prayer room for them to steal away to pray, and they was told no. Basically, because there is a strong division between religion and government. And it's so interesting that when another nation practices the Establishment Clause better than the United States, wow! So the article actually points out that the Quebec's education minister issued Bernard Drainville a directive late Wednesday saying schools must ensure that none of their spaces are used in fact and in appearance for the purposes of religious practices such as open prayers and or other similar practices. So you don't have to be you don't have to be able to have one person or groups actually singled out in order for them to be able to pray in school. Now, the thing about it is that the same minister said that, hey, if you want to pray in school, you can do it. Just pray silently to yourself. However, these are public domains, government ran domains, and the government ain't gonna make no type of issue with you praying to yourself. However, you can't do it with a designated prayer room. And that's the gist of this article. Phoebe, yes.
You'll make your mind up, won't you? You'll make your mind up.
You know, I'm coming to you. It took a minute because, like I was like, do I go to the part French person? Now I'm going there.
That's what I would say. Is this is how very French of the French province of Canada. I mean, it's nowhere near as strict as France itself, where France has a total church-state separation in its schooling, going so far as to say no to headscarves and no to caras, etc., etc. But it is kind of refreshing to see that, well, hang on a minute, the French have got something right. I mean, I look back and I see that a lot of Western Europe got a lot of things wrong. But in my opinion, this is one of the things that, equality, fraternity, etc., equality is actually quite nice, because it says that no matter your religion, no matter your lack of religion, when you walk into a school, that's not held against you. You're not made to feel like the outsider. And the thing that gets me is the American equivalent is the ruling on mandatory prayer in school, where it was then made voluntary. And children of a non-Christian faith, or even of some Christian faiths, that sat out of it were then bullied for sitting out of it. And what this does is that eliminates that as well. So Quebec doing that is helping that child that would otherwise be different, singled out, from having another reason to be different or singled out. And it's actually really refreshing to see somebody do something that really does improve the welfare of children in schools, as opposed to what we have spoken about earlier, where they aren't giving a monkeys about welfare in schools in the states like Florida, Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Tennessee. Quebec is actually sitting there and going, discrimination is wrong. And if we allow individuals to start using spaces for religious practices, or even for anti-religious practices, because that's what it's quite clear about. It can't be used in any way pro or anti-religion. So you're not going to have that level of discrimination that you would otherwise have got, which was the annoyance and the perversity when America said you can't have mandatory religious prayer, but you can have voluntary religious prayer, because it created a situation where children were discriminated against and bullied by other children, and doing it this way, whilst you will have some people going, but my religion, this, that, and the other. Yeah, you can keep your religion, and I'll keep my lack of religion. But a child doesn't generally have that choice, because it's usually imposed upon them by the parents. So children, in this case, having a religion imposed upon them, then going into a school and then seeing different religions imposed upon them, and then saying, excuse me, that's different, will very likely get pushed back, and it will create tensions and it will create bullying. So you just eliminate that whole thing. So Scott.
Well, the thing about this, and I just want to reiterate what both of you have commented on, and that is that, at first glance, it looks like they're pushing down religion, like they're saying no to religion. They're saying, you can't do that kind of thing. Well, they are saying that, but what it's doing is it is protecting the freedom of religion. Not if they allow certain types of prayers or certain types of religious activities to happen, well, what about people that are in other religions? You mentioned earlier, too, that there can be social pressure and worse for students that are merely sitting out, right? So if you're saying, well, if you don't want to pray, you just don't have to participate in that aspect of it. Or if you don't want to, do this activity, then you can just sit that out. Well, it's not quite that easy. There's all kinds. There's going to be peer pressure, social pressure, like I said, or worse. There can be violence. There can be all kinds of reactions. And so what they're doing is they're supporting real freedom of religion. Real freedom of religion involves not having others' religions imposed on you by the government. Okay, this is government sanctioned activity that's happening here. And yes, it's using public funding. If it's using public spaces, it's using public employees, and so they're not saying you can't believe in God. They're not saying that you can't worship the way you want to worship, other than if it infringes on somebody else's rights to exist in a public space without having to deal with that. Religious people don't want to have to have other religions imposed on them. They want to be able to sit with their beliefs for whatever reasons. I don't get it, but some people do, and that that's kind of their thing, and that's fine. That's fine. That we're in a free society, and we should be able to believe as we see fit. And so if there's that kind of pressure in the public spaces, then it's not freedom. So I give a hearty thumbs up to Quebec's education minister for standing up for religious freedom. I know that doing that kind of thing these days can be challenging, can open up yourself to threats and that kind of thing. And so a good show there. Granted, Canada is not the United States, and it's not quite as much of a problem as we have here in the United States, right? It's Canada, right? They know how to get along with other people. But
they'll apologize to you for it.
What's that?
Sorry.
They'll apologize to you for it.
Yeah. Well, my hope though is that it's not the influence of the United States on Canada. I hope it's not American creep kind of pushing its way into Canadian society. So good on them for addressing this issue and for standing up for freedom. And I hope it goes well for them, so that way we can use that as an example of a success story.
Scott,
Cynthia, what do you think?
What I would say though, Scott, before you say that, I would say this though. You're not going to get American creep in Canada, because Shannon Q is going to stand on the border and push it back. Just all by herself.
There is that. I hadn't figured out the Q factor. I hadn't figured out the Q factor, so I got to factor that in. Yeah,
the Q factor will push all Christo fascists back to their own damn country. Yes, yes, she will. Yes,
so we need her to push the border, continue to push that border south.
Yes,
maybe we need some Canadian creep then.
Yeah, to the lower 48. But now the only thing, guys, I was actually just a little concerned about is when I read this story and I was just looking at some of the backlog, is that this particular edict came from the education minister after specifically Muslim students asked for prayer rooms. So I was concerned about Islamophobia, but I kind of walked that back because it is an edict specifically against all types of demonstrations of like religious prayer in schools. So, I was like, okay, well, because here's my thing. When I was reading further, I saw that the Quebec Premier, Francois Legault, sent an Easter Monday tweet in which he credits Catholicism for engendering in us a culture of solidarity that distinguishes us on a continental scale. However, he was quickly criticized on the Twitters, and politicians, specifically in Canada, were like, yo, you have a duty of reserve and neutrality as premier of all Quebecers in our secular state. This is what Marwa Rizqui, liberal MNA for Saint Laurent and official opposition's educational critic, actually responded in a tweet. So I am so glad specifically that there are people specifically in Quebec who happen to share the what is it, the fourth estate, like media, that's pushing back against this, to actually have you know, autonomy when it comes to religion. And yes, thank you, it is the member of the national authority, and also having other politicians specifically in Quebec saying that no, this is a secular state and we should actually uphold that. Now if you want to go ahead and you personally want to praise Catholicism, as Mateo, I don't know why you would, but if you want to do that, that's on you, player. However, as a politician, as a person who's supposed to be leading our province, we are going to make sure that secularism is actually the rule of law, the rule of thumb rather. So we're going to keep your religious freedoms over here, and what in public spaces, including schools, we're going to keep them free of all religion, including Catholicism, Christianity, etc., etc., etc.
Scott, take us away.
Yeah, well, when I was doing my research for this article, I stumbled across a related article, and this one was from November of 2022, and apparently, and it was just, it almost seemed like an Onion article when I read it. Apparently, the English Language Montreal School Board is opposed to this bill because they're claiming that it infringes on their, quote, fundamental rights and freedoms, right? The board is claiming that minority language school boards, so they must have English language school boards and French language school boards in Quebec. I didn't know that, but they're saying that minority language school boards, and English is a minority language in that area, reserve the right to, quote, promote and preserve linguistic culture, cultural heritage, customs, habits, and experiences, which apparently includes the right for faculty and other school employees to openly practice their religious traditions and to wear their religious symbols during their normal workday. And this is the funny part here. They've argued that, quote, applying the law has meant that the EMSB, the English Montreal School Board, has been forced reluctantly to turn away otherwise qualified prospective teachers who say they will refuse to remove their religious symbols while at work.
But the bill doesn't say that.
So, but what they're claiming is that you're forcing us to reject teachers who don't want to follow the rules.
Wow.
Oh dear.
So,
oh dear.
The Quebec Attorney General Office has stated that the minority language protections apply to, you know, language, not their cultural, you know, religious symbology and stuff like that. And just as a last note, I was unable to find anything more about this challenge to the law. I'm assuming that since it wasn't mentioned in the article we read for this year, that it was either dropped or struck down, but it could be still pending. So anyway.
Oh no. Anyway.
Let's not that happen. Let's not have that happen.
But yes, anyway, if you have enjoyed what you have seen here today, you can join our social media outlets, and you can find the non-profit hosts on the Atheist Community of Discord by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord. But if you don't like Discord because the interface or something, or you've managed to get yourself banned somehow, you can instead go to Facebook, and you can go to tiny.cc/FBNP for the non-profits fan group.
Woo!
But if you'd like to show some support in a different way, you can, throughout the show, send us a super sticker or a super chat But you can also join us on Patreon at tiny.cc/PatreonNP. And you might even get your name read out on one of the shows. However, we also value your feedback. And as I said earlier, if you are Orange Wheel and you'd like to respond to what Scott was saying about you earlier, you can email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. But if you want to just, email us because, you like emailing us, you can also just feel free to contact the ACA in general at tv@atheist-community.org. I feel like I'm wrapped in the shroud of Turin now.
It's itchy. It's itchy.
Bloody, that is. But before we, sail off into the sunset, do you have anything you'd like to say to our wonderful viewers, Cynthia?
Yes. I like to say, screw you, Oklahoma sheriff, for wanting to lynch Black people. We coming for you. Not really, but I'm just saying, screw you, because I'm not leaving my house for some foolishness. But screw you. I'm glad that you made to resign, and hopefully you can't get a job in law enforcement anywhere else in the lower 48 or adjacent states. Alaska, Hawaii. Yeah.
Scott, it's been a pleasure to have you on tonight. So, what's your final parting
Wait,
thought?
hold on. Ain't nobody a pleasure to have me? Anybody a pleasure to have me? Is that what you're trying to say, Phoebe? I mean, I know you're about to get coordinated, but I mean,
I'll just sit over here. Let me know when I get a chance here. I should have known. It was going to be a wild evening. It's always fun with my good friend Cynthia, and of course the perennial wallflower of the ACA, Phoebe Rose. And I would like to point out that I would like the record to show that was a triple pun. And so thank you, both of you, for helping me learn a little bit about myself and about humanity tonight. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
But of course, I love being around you, Cynthia. But I'd like to say to everybody that, it's wonderful to know that there are people out there who are tuning in and will be realizing that America and Canada and Britain and other countries are doing things differently. And on that note, I would like to say thank you, everybody. And next week, I shall become a coronated queen round these parts. So tune in next week. And if you're watching the premiere of this live, you should go over to the Atheist Experience channel and you should catch that show live. But until next time, stay skeptical, stay questioning, and always have a magnifying glass to understand things. So until next week, this has been the Non-Profit.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.